If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 10 minutes. Hello, welcome. It is predicted that President Trump will die from a heart attack on December 12th, 2024. It is also predicted that Trump's heart attack will be triggered by a directed energy weapon that will target Trump through Bluetooth technology. The components inside the pointy thing that Trump took will facilitate this, and it is believed that when Trump visited Biden at the White House, Trump's Bluetooth MAC address was obtained, which will be used to target Trump with a directed energy weapon. I am predicting that Vice President Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis due to a bird strike into Busch Stadium. In the area code 314, it will be a burning bush, as described in Exodus 3:14. On December 24th, 2024, she will be replaced by Michelle Obama, and then Barack Obama will replace Michelle. I am predicting that dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan, New York City, and there will be a large-scale evacuation on December 16th. And on December 17th, martial law will be declared in the U.S. I am predicting that Israel will bomb Iran on December 17th. Israel will nuke and completely destroy Damascus, Syria on December 26th, 2024. On December 17th, 2024, it is predicted that the state legislatures in the swing states that are controlled by the Democrat Party will have their electors vote for Harris instead of Trump after his death. On this same day, December 17th, it is predicted that Joe Biden will become the first world leader to use an intercontinental ballistic missile in an act of war, and he will launch a ballistic missile into Iran. This will follow the predicted dirty bombs in New York City on December 16th. And the rocket into Iran will be a wag the dog event designed to distract from the electors in the swing states voting to make Kamala Harris the president-elect. It is predicted that on December 25th, Joe Biden will suffer a stroke. After Kamala Harris's predicted plane crash on December 24th and Joe Biden's predicted stroke on December 25th, it is predicted that on December 26th, Joe Biden will appoint Michelle Obama as the vice president, and then Biden will step down. Michelle Obama will appoint Barack Obama as the 51st vice president. On January 12th, 2025, Michelle Obama will step down, and Barack Obama will become the 48th president. His public inauguration ceremony will be on January 20th, 2025. I am predicting that former President Jimmy Carter will die on January 28th. It is predicted that on April 20th, 2025, there will be an outbreak of monkeypox or Marburg disease or both. April 20th will be a symbolic beginning to a new pandemic. Alternatively, it could also be that the symbolic beginning to the new pandemic will be on April 1st, 2025, and that on April 20th, 2025, martial law will be declared because of the new outbreak. June 8th, 2025, the true Feast of Pentecost in the calendar that watches for new moons, will be the day of the resurrection rapture event. It is predicted that on June 9th, the day after the rapture, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the fifth trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens, and it is possible that June 9th will be the day Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. At some point, there will be a massive Mary apparition that will deceive the masses, because all Mary apparitions in history have been demons pretending to be Mary. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed that will be facilitated through the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist, and 5G frequencies. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. I am predicting that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on August 1st, 2025. It is predicted that on August 6th, 2025, the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River for over 100 years will finally break free and crash over Niagara Falls. The reason for this is that Niagara Falls is Noah's flood symbolism, and the barge was involved in the most dramatic rescue in the history of Niagara Falls, symbolic of Noah's Ark. Niagara in the native language means straight, narrow way, and Niagara's Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the CN Tower in downtown Toronto, because Toronto and its tower are symbolic of the Tower of Babel. In a game of horseshoes, the object is to aim the horseshoe and throw it at the metal stick, which is why the Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the metal stick that is the CN Tower. God is communicating that as testament for those who will live in the 1,000 years of Christ's reign on earth, the geography of North America will, as a result of a massive earthquake, be divided by a body of water from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi Delta. This destruction will be judgment on America and Canada for attempting to divide God's land, Israel. When this happens, the water in the Great Lakes will spill out over southern Ontario and Toronto. I am predicting that a solar flare will erupt on the surface of the sun and send a coronal mass ejection that will hit Earth on August 13th, 2025, which will knock out America's power grid and will lead to food shortages. The hit of the coronal mass ejection, predicted for August 13th, that will knock out the power grid will also knock many planes out of the sky. I am predicting that on August 23rd, 2025, there will be a catastrophic asteroid hit of Earth, which will trigger the eruption of Yellowstone volcano and will cause the volcano in the Canary Islands to collapse into the Atlantic Ocean and send a mega tsunami towards the east coast. The asteroid will also trigger a mega landslide on Hawaii Island that will trigger a mega tsunami that will hit the west coast. It will also trigger the collapse of the Hoover Dam, which will cause a water panic in California, and many other devastating earthquakes. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, Judgment Day, will be at the end of 2026. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon, Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Make a note right now of these alternative platforms that you can find me on, in case you can't find me later. This video is also the end portion of the Paris Hilton United Healthcare CEO shooting at the Hilton Hotel and Trump in Paris, France at the Notre Dame Cathedral reopening video. All right, one last thing here, I believe, is that President Trump, God's trumpet, while he was in Paris on the day of the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral, which he attended, he paid a surprise visit with Macron, who is Mark symbolism. As I mentioned, his name, Macron, means Mark, and he is associated with the Antichrist. He's one of the 10 kings. And speaking of that, okay, let's emphasize this. He is one of the 10 kings. Now, the 10 kings, I believe, personally, is also symbolic. I've learned enough at this point that all of the book of Revelation can be interpreted symbolically, including such a thing as the number of kings. It doesn't mean that there's going to be specifically exactly 10 kings, or even what this will mean. It means, I believe, world leaders that align with Rome. In other words, Western leaders. And anyway, Macron will be a leader, if you will, of the 10 kings. That's pretty clear. He even has come out with such ambitions, stated things basically to this effect. All right. So, and again, I mentioned briefly the connection between him and Pope Francis, the Antichrist. I explained that earlier. So we have this facade of the kings in front of the Notre Dame Cathedral, and he is hosting this event, if you will, at the Notre Dame Cathedral, and he is one of the 10 kings. In other words, this is really part of God identifying Emmanuel Macron as being one of the 10 kings. Okay? Now, Trump met at, I don't know I forget the name of the place where they met. He met with Macron and Zelensky. The three had a meeting. God is using Zelensky. God uses firsts for prophetic signs. Zelensky is the first Jewish leader of Ukraine. What are the kings outside of the Notre Dame Cathedral? They're Jewish kings, rulers, leaders. Zelensky is the first Jewish leader of Ukraine. God is using firsts for signs, but one reason for using firsts is to point to the first affirmative action black president, king, and future Antichrist king, who is the 44th president which is why on the day, the symbolic prophetic first day of the Russia-Ukraine war, on February 24th, 2022, Zelensky had just turned 44 years old. He was essentially 44 years old throughout the prophetic first year of the war, especially the prophetic first day of the war. And because of this beginning of the war, there was a mass exodus from Ukraine, an evacuation, if you will, which ties into other things. But it was the nation before before it lost millions of people of its population, not just to casualties of war, but the masses that fled Ukraine into the rest of Europe, especially Poland, where I was at the time. And the nation prior to the war was made up of 44 million people. The first Jewish leader was 44 years old, leading a nation of 44 million people. This is why God has been using Zelensky as Antichrist symbolism. His speeches at the UN, addressing the UN, for example, and such things, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, there are multiple signs of God using Zelensky because of this symbolism of being symbolic of the Antichrist, and this is rooted in how he was 44 years old and the leader of 44 million people before the Exodus, which incidentally hints at the Exodus or the rapture of God's faithful who will escape the severe persecution from the Antichrist, the 44th president. So this is why Trump met the leader, the 44-year-old leader of 44 million people on this extremely prophetic day, December 7th, in Paris, at this massive warning of judgment for the church, prophetic sign that I have explained in this video. The burning of the roof of the Notre Dame Cathedral, and on, and Michelle Obama, and all of the connections, including what you were looking at in this diagram. And again, God pairs 23 and 44 to confirm the signs and connections. And here we have an astounding pairing of 23 and 44, because again, the date 12:7 hints at Revelation 12:7, which is the verse that symbolizes the beginning of the end times period of the Antichrist, when war broke out in heaven and Satan, and the dragon and his minions were thrown down from heaven to earth, symbolic of Satan and the beginning of the Antichrist period. And even in the passage, it mentions the 1,260-day period. Well, anyway, that's why Trump on the Church Day sign met the 44-year-old leader of 44 million. It hints at the 44th president, Antichrist King. And they met in conjunction with this event at the Notre Dame Cathedral with its facade of kings. Anyway, the 44 here on the date pairs with the 23rd prime number of years to this other, or the 12:7 date, when war broke out. Again, Revelation 12:7 is when war broke out in heaven, and the date 12:7 in 1941 was when war broke out, and America entered World War II. And we also had these connections, which, as I explained, hinted at the 4 times 44, because it connected with this symbolism of 4 times 4 times 4 to Philip Petit, who walked across the towers of Notre Dame Cathedral. But this date here that it connects to in this diagram is the date that Philip Petit walked across the Twin Towers. Okay, and we also again had from the actual fire at the cathedral the 64th prime number of days. Like exactly. And 64 is 4 times 4 times 4. And again, the name Jesus, the name of the King of Kings, is 444. And again, the Notre Dame Cathedral houses the crown of thorns that the King of Kings wore, or the King of the Jews wore. Whoa. No kidding. Because it is the Jewish kings that are depicted with the facade of kings. And Jesus wore the crown, but he wore the crown as the King of the Jews. Wow. I just realized that. Okay. Well, the meeting with the formerly 44-year-old of formerly 44 million people also connects with 2 plus 3 days, which hints at 23, and that's another pairing of 23 and 44. And so it's amazing beyond words, actually. It really ties everything together here with the provision of this number through trumpet meeting with Zelensky and giving us the number 44. It's amazing. Who was the first, or is the first Jewish leader, as in king? Zelensky is symbolism for this facade of kings at the Notre Dame Cathedral in himself. And Zelensky attended this reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral with its facade of kings, of Jewish kings. He's the first Jewish leader, as in king, of Ukraine. All right, there is yet even more astounding, amazing, beyond words information related to all of this. I have another update here, which is what occurred on December 8th. Now we are going to talk about how these signs connect to December 8th, the day after Trump was in Paris for the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral, before which, in the evening, he met Macron and Zelensky. So, just after this evening, when Trump met with Zelensky, was the fall of the perimeter of security of Damascus, when the Asad regime collapsed and the rebels took over. It was a collapse of a perimeter of wall of security, which is Trump, because Trump is a type for Joshua in the Bible, who led the Israelites around the walls of security of the ancient city of Jericho in the Middle East, before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment after they blew trumpets. And Jericho, the people in Jericho were enemies of the Israelites, as are the Syrians. And that's why this connects with Trump. Again, Trump's presidency and election campaigns were synonymous with his border wall of security. Okay, so here is the update. As you can see, it was written December 8th, just to confirm that for you. The news on December 8th, which is 12:8, which hints at G128, which is the word in the Greek concordance that God is frequently using, and is the word the Ethiopian, because this points to the president who was born in East Africa, near Ethiopia. The news on 12:8 is about the Middle East. And again, in Bible prophecy, the Antichrist will be in Israel and leading the world effort to divide God's land and make Jerusalem an international city. The news on 12:8, as in G128, is about the Middle East, near where Philip encountered the Ethiopian in the Bible, in the book of Acts, which was in Gaza, another location of the enemy of Israel. God's trumpet trumpeted about Russia's weakness in Syria and Russia negotiating a ceasefire with Ukraine. Okay, Trump trumpeted in his social media post, a main way in which God has been using Trump to trumpet his signs. Trump trumpeted a classic Trump sign, which is a trumpet, a tweet, a trumpet. He trumpeted his tweet that all the major news outlets quoted regarding how Russia is weak, and this relates to the collapse of Syria, and it's time for Russia to negotiate a ceasefire with Ukraine. This was just hours following his meeting with Zelensky. The evening before, he met with Zelensky, who again, God is using as Antichrist symbolism, because at the beginning of the war, he had just turned 44 years old and led a nation that was made up of 44 million people before there was the mass exodus, which is symbolic of the exodus of God's people and escape from the coming persecution from the Antichrist, the 44th president, which is why God has used Zelensky in numerous occasions for this symbolism for the Antichrist. Okay, so the evening before, Trumpet met with Zelensky of Ukraine, the first Jewish leader, I should emphasize. God uses firsts for signs. He is the first Jewish leader, and now we have this in context with the Middle East, and as I will explain, connected to Israel, the nation of Jews. Okay? And of course, this hints at the first affirmative action black president. The number 4 symbolizes the world. So, in, for example, E.W. Bullinger's well-known book, the number 4 is described as being symbolic of the material world, things created by man, which, by the way, is the reason why the 444th word in Strong's Greek Concordance is the word man. So the number 4 symbolizes the world and the material world and created things. And Damascus is the world's oldest continuously inhabited city. And therefore, Damascus symbolizes the world, which is why Isaiah chapter 17 speaks of Damascus being destroyed overnight, which could only be the result of a nuclear bomb, and this being some sort of symbolic beginning to the end, and the world ganging up on Israel and the Antichrist leading the effort to divide God's land, etc. And so, but when that happens, it will be symbolic of judgment on the world, not just Damascus. And the number 4 symbolizes this, because Damascus, as I just explained, symbolizes the world, the world's oldest continuously inhabited city. Trumpet's social media post on December 8th is 4 days. I should say his media post regarding Damascus is 4 days before the predicted last Trump sign, the date it is predicted that President Trump will die, on December 12th. This trumpet, Zelensky Damascus trumpet social media post on December 8th, 2024, is 92 months and 1 day after Trump launched the 7th superprime number of missiles into Syria, 77 days after his inauguration, at the age of 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old, which incidentally was 73 days, which hints at 3 sets of 7 in the book of Joshua, after his win in the election by 77 electoral votes, on the same day that Netanyahu, the leader of Israel, as in the leader of the Israelites, Joshua, had been in power for 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days exactly. Okay, so this 92 months and 1 day connection between Trump launching missiles into Syria and his trumpet regarding Syria on December 8th, his social media post regarding Syria. This 92 months and 1 day's connection hints at 921, which is the 276th semi-prime number, and that is a giveaway, a revealing that this is prophetic, because this is an extremely prophetic number in the Bible. It is one of 3 unusually specific numbers that are all triangular numbers, and this one, 276, is the 23rd triangular number, which again is the number that symbolizes the Antichrist. It is a number that identifies the Antichrist, the basketball president who wore jersey number 23. And 2 divided by 3 is 0.666, the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. And the mark of the Antichrist changes a person's chromosomes, for which a person has 23 pairs of. Okay, and so this 23rd triangular number with this connection to Zelensky, who is symbolized by the number 44, and Damascus, which is symbolized by the number 4, this makes this a pairing of 23 and 44 to confirm the signs and connections. And again, this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on this principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 9 and 23 and 44. And I know this because I've been studying his big picture of signs from morning till night for more than full-time hours for 7 years. And again, the 44th president was the basketball president who wore jersey number 23. Okay, so this is a classic way that this works. And it is through this connection that is confirmed with the pairing of 23 and 44 that God is able to tell this story that I am telling here. And there's more to the story here. But we just connected the beginning of trumpets, I should say the trumpeting of Trump's presidency, because it was 77 days after his inauguration at the age of 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old. That was the symbolic or trumpet beginning, if you will, of his presidency, and that just connected to the end of his presidency, or the end of Trump, because he will die 4 days later, and this sign on the day that he trumpeted Syria, with this connection to the day he launched missiles into Syria, is 4 days before his predicted death, the last Trump sign. The Israelites blew the trumpets, and they blew them for one long last trump, a long last trumpet blast before the walls of security of ancient Jericho collapsed in God's judgment. And the walls of security of Jericho were a perimeter of security, as was the perimeter of security of the Asad regime in Damascus that collapsed in God's judgment. It was all symbolism for the coming collapse of Trump and America's walls of security collapsing in God's judgment. This collapse of the security perimeter of Damascus was in fact not only symbolic of the world, but a prophetic sign pointing to the collapse of security of America through Trump. It is through Trump that God used this collapse of the security perimeter of Damascus to point to the collapse of the walls of security of America and the rise of the Antichrist, the 44th president. Part of the story of the fall of Assad is the order Netanyahu gave for his military, the Israeli military, to take the buffer zone between the Golan Heights and Syria. So on this same day that the Assad regime collapsed, Netanyahu ordered the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, to take the buffer zone between the Golan Heights that's occupied by Israeli settlements and Syria. December 8th, 2024, this day that Netanyahu gave this order, was 2,213 days after the UN passed 9 resolutions condemning Israel on the Hebrew calendar date 9/9 in 5779. And this same day was the day that God's trumpet, trumpeted the Paradise Fire in Paradise, California, 9 days after the fire started. 9 days after the town burned, in an apocalyptic fire and evacuation. If you will recall, this massive fire in northern central California in November of 2018, which actually was the anniversary of Trump's election, but the fire. Well, anyway, and that's actually not inconsequential because it was exactly 8 plus 8 plus 8 months after Trump's election, exactly, because it was both on the date 11/8. 11/8 hints at 11 times 8 equals 88, and the name Trump in simple English gematria is equal to 88, but Donald J. Trump is equal to 888 in English gematria. And so from Donald J. Trump's election on the date 11/8, which hints at 88, it is 8 plus 8 plus 8 months exactly to the Paradise Fire, which Trump then trumpeted from 9 days after on the date 9/9 in 5779 in the Hebrew calendar. This was actually when it was first fully recognized, 100% certain, that the number 9 is the most important number in God's big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. This is near the beginning of my journey in studying his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. And this was solid confirmation of this fact that the number 9 symbolizes judgment in the Bible, and this is the most important number in God's signs, as the signs are judgment, warning of judgment. And so that's why Trumpet was in Paradise, California, 9 days on the date 9/9 in 5779, 9 days after the fire. That day that he was in Paradise, California was also 666 days after he was inaugurated, but it was also 666 days after the Antichrist, the 44th president, left office. The Paradise Fire lasted for 6 plus 6 plus 6 days. Okay, and it killed 85 people, and now, and only now, only in the last year is this the significance of the number 85 recognized, and why it was 85 people that died in this apocalyptic fire and evacuation, which is all symbolic of the evacuation of God's faithful from the coming persecution from the Antichrist, who is identified in the 5th through 8th King's prophecy in Revelation chapter 17. That's why this number 85. Pope Francis, the first of the two Antichrists, was elected Pope exactly 85 years after the St. Francis Dam collapsed in Los Angeles, which hints at fallen angels. Well, okay, so the number 85 is that's the reason why that number of people were killed, but also the fire in Paradise, California was right next to Helltown, which also burned, part of it, Helltown, California. And it was a hellish experience. If you recall the images and the descriptions of the people evacuating this town that just lit up instantly in this apocalyptic evacuation and fire, which is why 85 people died, because it was so sudden. So, okay. Now, this Paradise Fire hinted at Paradise Lost. Trump was in Paradise, California, trumpeting Paradise Lost. That's why on the Day of Atonement, which is the day in the Hebrew calendar that symbolizes judgment, because now we're talking about the date 9/9 in the Hebrew calendar in the year 5779, which, by the way, was recognized ahead of time. Prior even to November 8th, the date of the fire, the date 9/9 in 5779 was recognized that God was pointing to it big time. And that's why I predicted something to happen 9 days before that. I predicted that something disastrous was going to happen 9 days before the date 9/9 in 5779. And then that was the day of the Paradise Fire. In other words, I predicted the Paradise Fire. I predicted all sorts of things like this. But unfortunately, I haven't yet been able to document this 100% in your face to the atheist or Christian that's skeptic prediction. Because I can tell an atheist or a skeptic Christian that I predicted the Paradise Fire, and they still won't, and I'll explain everything that I just explained, and they'll still not believe it. That's the nature of a skeptic. But when the prediction for Trump dying on the exact date of December 12th comes to pass, they're really going to be irrational at that point. Or they're going to change their mind and recognize that this is God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections that is being explained on this channel and only this channel. Okay, so the Day of Atonement symbolizes judgment. And so the date 995779 connects, like I'm saying here, with this 2,152 days to the Day of Atonement, October 12th, 2024, which was a big date that was known since 2017, because it's the end, symbolically, of the 7 years of warning signs, followed by the 8th year of destruction. But in fact, the 8th year is also symbolic. It'll actually be 2 years of the destruction of America and the rise of the Antichrist. That's another story. The big picture of signs that communicate this will be proven to be true when the prediction comes to pass. And make no mistake, I know far better than you the reason for the prediction that is from God. And it is to prove what I have just said, that the 7 years in Daniel chapter 9 that everyone is still looking for has already happened. And we are now entering the 2 years of destruction, symbolized by the 8th, this principle of seven followed by an 8th, which brings us back incidentally to the king's prophecy in Revelation 17, Trump being the 7th president in this parallel, followed by the 8th king that is the Antichrist, Barack Obama, who will follow the death of President Trump. Which is, again, the reason for the 666 days connection, too, because that was 666 days after the Antichrist left office, the day that Trump was in paradise. Well, Trump, on October 12, 2024, trumpeted again, paradise, paradise lost. He said these words exactly, and it was quoted in all of the mainstream media news stories about it when he held a rally, a campaign rally in California, which is an unusual thing to do because California was not in the running as a swing state for Trump, but he used the opportunity to lambast California and to make a point. He went to California and held a rally in order to say exactly what I just said he said. He said that California is a paradise lost. Trump was in Paradise, California. And then he trumpeted that California is a paradise lost while running for president to highlight how the Democrats ruined the state. Okay, and by the way, California is equal to 88 in simple English gematria, as is Trump. So Trump trumpeted that California is a paradise lost 2,152 days after he was in Paradise, California, that was lost in the fire. So that's amazing. Now, what is with the 2,152 days is the question. In the Hebrew concordance, H2152 is the word heat and burning. It's the word that means heat or burning. And it's used in a metaphorical spiritual context. That's why it means this heat and burning. This is amazing. So the Paradise Fire, of course, is about heat and burning, connects to Trump trumpeting Paradise Lost, which isn't only about California, but about America being a paradise lost. And not only that, the word Trump in archaic English means the sounding of a trumpet or a trumpet. And Trump trumpeted in California, which is equal to 88, and the word Trump is equal to 88. He trumpeted in California, which is a Trump, because the both are equal to 88, he trumpeted that not only is California a paradise lost, but America is a paradise lost. And he did this on Judgment Day, the Day of Atonement. And it connected to the other Judgment Day, the date 9/9 in the year 5779, when 9 UN anti-Israel resolutions were passed. Now let's get into that. The day that Trumpet was at the ruins of the Paradise Fire was the day of the 9 anti-Israel resolutions on 9/9 and 5779, a date, again, that I knew ahead of time would be a major date because of it being 9/9 in the year 5779. And then, lo and behold, it was the day of the 9 anti-Israel resolutions. These resolutions, the thing that was prophetic about them, the main thing, because I forget the other details, it's been years, but the main thing was that it was the first time that the U.S., under Trump, God's trumpet, did not abstain from the particular resolution condemning Israel's occupation of the Golan Heights and voted no. Thus, the U.S. recognized the Golan Heights as Israel's land. God trumpeted that the Golan Heights are Israel's land through Trump, and Trump voting no on the resolution regarding the Golan Heights. These 9 resolutions, including the Golan Heights resolution on the date 9/9 in 5779 and Trumpet in Paradise, were 2,213 days before the fall of Assad and Israel's move into the buffer zone in the Golan Heights. And again, this connection hints at heat and burning. Well, what is going to burn, as described in Isaiah chapter 17, is Damascus. It'll be destroyed overnight, and that will be through a red-hot nuclear bomb. Okay, so Trumpet in Paradise and the 9 resolutions on 9/9 and 5779 were 2,213 days before the fall of Assad's regime and the perimeter of security collapsing, and Israel taking beyond its perimeter of security into the buffer zone of the Golan Heights, its military, and Trumpet's trumpet regarding the collapse of the perimeter of security of Damascus. Because again, the Israelites blew trumpets, and Trump trumpeted on both ends of this connection, because he was in Paradise, and then he was trumpeting the collapse of the security perimeter of Damascus in Syria. And that was all relevant too, because it involved a mention of Ukraine, and Damascus and Ukraine are symbolized by 4 and 44. And he had just met Zelensky just hours before, because the security collapsed in Damascus at dawn, and he met Zelensky in the evening the night before. Now, here's the big thing. 2,213 is the 110 plus 110 plus 110th prime number. In other words, the 330th prime number. But God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. The number that symbolizes Joshua and the Israelites blowing the trumpets in the book of Joshua and the walls of security collapsing, the number that symbolizes that is the number 110. Because Joshua died at the age of 110. And the Israelites entered the promised land before they took Jericho on the date 110 in the Hebrew calendar, which is symbolic of 110. Or vice versa, 110 is symbolic of the date 110, Nisan 10. And so that's why it's 3 sets of 110 here, to emphasize its symbolic meaning. And that's why this number is this 3 sets of 110 prime number. But what confirms that even more, that makes it jaw-dropping and mind-boggling and amazing beyond words, is that it is a stunning pairing of 9 and 110 that confirms the signs and connections. And this is how it works. God pairs 9 and 110 to confirm the signs and connections. Because again, this connects with the date 99 and 5779 and the 9 UN resolutions, and it connects to about the Golan Heights, and it connects to Israel moving into the Golan Heights with this 110 number. Now, I'm going to play a clip, a brief one that explains why and how God pairs 9 and 110 together. And then I'll come back and I have one more amazing thing to add to this. There's even more. All right, I just realized that I've already played the clip. So I've already played this clip regarding God pairing 9 and 110 together. And I intend to break this off into a smaller video, just a clip of this particular section of the video. And so I'll play that clip in the shorter video. Well, so anyway, back to this date. This date of the 9 UN resolutions on the date 99 and 5779, this date that was known to be the big date that God was pointing to ahead of time, which is why I predicted something would happen 9 days before it, and then the Paradise Fire happened. What also happened on this date, the date that Trump was in paradise 666 days after his inauguration, was the big announcement regarding the search for the lost Argentine submarine that sank a year earlier, almost exactly. And then there was the big international effort in the search for this submarine that sank off the coast of Argentina that killed 44 sailors. That's right. In fact, in Argentina, it is colloquially known as the 44. The incident is known as the 44 because of the 44 lost sailors. So, the prophetic connection here, though, is that the big thing about this lost submarine was when it sank, there was an explosion that was detected by I forget the name of it, but the organization that is international, and again, it was an international effort to search for the submarine. But there was an international organization that's responsible for detecting underwater nuclear explosions. It's a monitoring organization to make sure that no nation is testing nukes under the ocean. This organization, and I forget the name, it detected this explosion at the time of the sinking of this Argentine submarine, which was a part of the story in the search for the submarine. If we can pinpoint where the explosion was, etc., we can find the submarine, etc. So it was a central aspect of the news story. But what this was symbolism for nuclear bombs. This explosion that was detected by the International Atomic Detecting Organization agency responsible for detecting nuclear explosions. In other words, it was symbolic of a nuclear explosion. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about this sign involving Damascus, which is described to be destroyed. The oldest continuously inhabited city in the world is described as being completely destroyed overnight. And we know that this prophecy hasn't been fulfilled because God designed it that Damascus be the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world. In other words, there was no point in history in which this prophecy has been fulfilled. That's the reason why of this claim to be the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world. And it will be destroyed because the Bible says it will be destroyed. And a city can only be destroyed through a nuclear bomb in one night through a nuclear bomb. Which, when we read the passage, it clearly fits the description of how it's destroyed. And so we have this Damascus sign on December 8th, 2024. And it connects to the nuclear submarine, or it wasn't a nuclear submarine, but it was an explosion that was detected by the Nuclear Detecting Agency. By the way, Argentina is relevant because the first of the two antichrists is from Argentina. And on that note, he is known for being the big anti-nuclear weapons pope. He went to Japan, for example, to deliver his speech on nuclear weapons, and visited the monument to the hidden Christians who were persecuted in Japan for centuries, exactly 666 days after the hidden Christians monument in Nagasaki was recognized by the UNESCO, as a World Heritage Site, which identified him as the Antichrist, obviously, from whom Christians, true Christians, will be hiding. So we have this connection between the Argentine explosion, that's a nuclear bomb explosion sign, to the Damascus sign here, the fall of Damascus, the collapse of the security of Damascus. This is huge. This connection here. This is screaming that Damascus is about to be nuked. This connection. All of what I've explained. There's more. The day of the announcement of the discovery of the submarine that lost 44 sailors was exactly 44 weeks after the false missile alert in Hawaii, where Obama is from. So we have Argentina connecting to Hawaii, which reveals the two places that symbolize the two antichrists. The false missile alert on January 13th, 2018 went on for, from what I recall, more than half an hour. For more than half an hour, there was panic in Hawaii. People scrambling for more than half an hour, thinking that a missile was on its way, an intercontinental ballistic was on its way from Korea, about to nuke Hawaii. But it was a false alarm. Somehow, one of the persons working at the facility made a mistake, an error. Forget all the details. The false missile alert in Hawaii, where Obama is from, was exactly 44 weeks, Obama being the 44th president, to the 44 sailors' nuclear Argentina submarine sign, which in turn connects, as I have explained, with the number to walls of security collapsing, 3 times 110 prime number, right? And that's all relevant because of the other sign involving Syria to the collapse of Damascus in Syria. In other words, a missile is going to destroy Damascus soon. Now, what is very interesting is that it had been believed before all of this on December 8th that December 17th would be the day that Israel will bomb Iran. And the collapse of Damascus is related to Iran because the Asad regime was being supported by Iran. But Iran had been weakened because of Israel and on and on. So December 17th, this date that was believed before December 8th to be the day that Israel will bomb Iran, is 9 days after this collapse of Damascus sign, which connects to the 9 resolutions regarding the Golan Heights on the date 9/9 in 5779. In other words, that's confirmation of this 9 days. But not only that, it's also believed, and prior to December 8th, that December 26th is the date that God is pointing to as being the date that Israel will nuke Damascus. And December 26th is 9 days after December 17th, which is the date it is predicted that Israel will bomb Iran. And December 17th is 9 days after this collapse of Damascus sign. All right. I do not believe that the date that Israel will nuke Damascus will be December 26th. God is pointing to this date in relation to this, but it is apparent to me that it will more than likely be a step. That's how God's big picture of signs works. They involve steps in the trails of signs, this trail of signs leading to the date that Israel will bomb or nuke Damascus has been going on for years now. And it seems far more than likely that December 26th will be just a step. And it seems the day for Israel to nuke Damascus will be June 8th. In fact, the day of the rapture. Okay? I'll explain more regarding that later. So I just want to make that clear. Something will happen on December 26th. I also have other ideas of what will also happen on December 26th that are not necessarily related to this. But anyway, that's just keep that in mind. And recall, at the beginning of this video, I explained the relevance of this date, 12/7, the anniversary of when war broke out, which hints at Revelation 12:7, when war broke out in heaven. And what I mean again is World War II broke out. This is the anniversary of it, 12/7, December 7th. This was the day of Trump meeting with Zelensky. And then this flowed into a few hours later, in the dawn of the next day, this war event when the rebels took Damascus. But as I've just explained now, this is all part of a prophecy and a story God is telling to communicate the breaking out of war between Israel and Iran. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.